What is good, Tatted people, and welcome back to the channel. In honor of one of my favorite album series, A Love Letter to You 4 being dropped last Friday, I just wanted to talk a bit about Trippie Redd's performance on the album and some things I noticed. But before we get into that, sit tight through a 10-second intro where it just spells out my name to make sure you know what the is going on. Let's get into it. Firstly, I just want to say that A Love Letter to You is Trippie Redd's most successful project series yet. Actually, it might be his only one, but you get what I mean. A Love Letter to You 4 is expected to sell 80,000 copies first week, which is actually really good considering rap news has been dead. He nor anyone in the rap game has really been doing any sort of clout stunts to increase their sales, except for one specific rapper, which I'll get into later this week on a video, so stay tuned for that. So their album sales are completely based upon music and not any hype anymore. But again, once 6ix9ine gets out of jail, all that shit will change, and we will have to do clout stunts on Instagram, TikTok, whatever app everybody's using at the time to actually increase their sales. Additionally, Trippie Redd's merch doesn't factor too much into his sales as much as other rappers like Travis Scott, Juice WRLD, because he simply just doesn't promote it as much, and whoever his label hired to design his merch drops every time needs to be fired because that shit is whack. He could significantly increase his sales just by creating fire designs that Trippie fans would actually buy with a free copy of the album to count for another sale, even though they're most likely streaming it as well, so it's just double, triple, quadruple the first week sales that he's getting now from the hardcore Trippie fans, that is. According to GQ, Travis Scott sold over 50,000 merch album bundles with Astroworld, so if Trippie did even half of this, his first week expected album sales for A Love Letter to You 4 would be over the 100,000 mark. But anyway, Trippie had something to prove with A Love Letter to You 4 coming off of the ! Album that was perceived as a failure and a force by latching his album name to the clout of XXXTentacion, because X dropped an album called ? And ! Is pretty much the same thing, but you know, it's just a different symbol, but it does have a dot on the bottom, so you know, relatively similar. But that album had the lowest first week album sales of any of Trippie's albums since becoming a mainstream artist, with only 51,000 copies sold first week. So again, he had something to prove with this next album, A Love Letter to You 4. And what better way to continue one of his most successful series of A Love Letter to You with the album to get him back on track. But now let's actually get into the music discussion. At first listen, I was still stuck in the ! Perception and thought the album was but nothing better. But I realized after a run through that in listening to rap as a whole nowadays, we're stuck in a fast food mentality where we're just skipping through songs after 10 seconds trying to figure out if we actually like it enough to put it on our daily playlist and whatnot, but we're not actually listening to the album for what it is, a cohesive project that's supposed to be listened to together. And Trippie Redd happens to be one of the only hip-hop artists nowadays that actually is a project artist and not just singles where you want to hear them in the club or just to get hyped. But no, the project is a whole storyline itself. So I listened again, and this album is absolutely full of bangers, honestly, in the sense of good music, not just like the tempo. I just had to settle down a bit and listen to every song fully and make sure I wasn't in the gym or in a weird mood where I only wanted to listen to a specific type of music that'll pump me up or whatever mood I was in like that. Because I don't know about you guys, but when I listen to a song, it really depends on what mood I'm in if I like the song or not. And I think this was the issue with ! too. Not that it was a bad album, but just that it was only halfway a rap album like everyone expected from Trippie Redd. So that's why all of the fans kind of hated on him, but I guess now that they've gotten a little bit of a dose from ! The next album wasn't so much of a surprise because we were already expecting, you know, Trippie Redd to start diversifying a bit in his music. And we also got a ton of albums this year which were just, you know, attempts of trying to make hella club bangers, and Trippie really isn't that type of artist, as his mantra from the jump has always been timeless music. That's why he has an infinity on his hand. And I think both of these albums will age well, unlike many other rappers' projects where, again, it's just fast food, you eat it, then you throw it away. Even some of the more popular artists like Future. So in my opinion, the direction I think Trippie Redd is moving in is basically the tatted up Drake, in that his music isn't the trendy hard-hitting 808s with a sole objective to make a meme like many of these other artists who are underground or just making club bangers. Instead, he's going for an actually enjoyable album with relatable storylines. I mean, he's actually talking about love stories and experiences of emotions through his songs. And something we overlook many times with hip hop artists too is that every song on many artists' albums sound almost completely identical. I mean, can you tell the difference between songs when you listen to the Nav or Gunna album? I didn't think so. And in Trippie's case, every song sounds completely different, whether it derives from the beat, his flow, or vocals. And obviously he sprinkled in some fun and hype songs like Death and Bust Down, whatever that says. Is that French or something? Like, because otherwise it wouldn't even be a hip hop album at that point, and he'd lose people's attention with the entirely slow mood. And this is similar to Drake's with Scorpion had the side A and the side B, or whatever other way he categorized it, where it was a rap side and it was an R&B side. Another reason he's like Drake is that he's working with international artists. I never thought I'd hear a French artist on Trippie Redd's album, just like how I was surprised when Drake started doing like Jamaican music and British rap and shit. Next he's probably gonna go to the North Pole to work with some elf to capture the elven audience and Santa Claus or something like that. And lastly, he doesn't have any crazy features that overshadowed his songs, which I'm sure he's happy about after the whole Playboi Carti situation on Exclamation Mark, where they took off the song and fans were saying that Playboi Carti had the only good verse on the album. But then we found out that Playboi Carti was actually the reason that the song got taken off, because he didn't like the mix. Trippie is arguably as big or just as big as all of the artists featuring on his album, other than maybe DaBaby, who is still on his initial clout run where he's probably the hottest rapper right now. But in a couple years, we'll see if DaBaby is actually as big as Trippie Redd, given that Trippie Redd is already a few years in the game. So in conclusion, I give this album an 8.5 due to its diversity from hardcore rapping to almost R&B music. Trippie Redd has successfully solidified his career and stay in the hip-hop industry, which was a little iffy after the Exclamation Mark album, where people thought maybe he was going downhill or he fell off, and Trippie Redd even addressed this. And not because of its quality, but because of the perception from the fans. But with this album, A Love Letter to You 4, he's definitely won back their support, at least from the information we got from the 80,000 expected first week sales and just people loving it on social media. So let me know what you guys thought of the album in the comments. Give me a 1 through 10, and I'll see you soon with some other videos regarding Trippie Redd in some way or fashion, but you'll find out soon. Peace out, Cloudy people. Know what I'm saying?